Good morning and welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. I hope you've had a wonderful weekend. Of course, I was not on live with you yesterday. We played one of my prior programs, sermons, whatever it was yesterday. And that's what we do on Mondays. Give me a little bit of a breather, if you will. But I'm on with you live today. And first thing I want to get out of the way is this coming Tuesday, for those of you who are in my area, this coming today is Tuesday, this coming Thursday night at 5:30 p.m. at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church at 1489 Laskin Road in Virginia Beach. We're hosting a sort of a fundraiser get-together for Stan, bring you up to date on what we're doing, and introduce our new Stan Awards dinner that's coming up on June the 11th at Cornerstone Chapel in Loudoun County, Virginia. That's going to be a great event. Please mark that on your calendars now. June the 11th, Cornerstone Chapel, pastored by Pastor Gary Hambrick, good friend of mine, and wonderful facility. We decided not to go to a hotel or some other facility, but since Pastor Gary was kind enough to open up his church, we thought that's a perfect place to do it. We are, after all, a Christian-based organization, and doing it in the church we thought was just the perfect way to do it. That's right outside, of course, of Washington, D.C., so you can fly into Reagan, fly into the other airport up there, but fly in Dulles, fly into Reagan, and you'll be right there, literally, either one. You'll be within 15 minutes of the event. So we'll give you more details on that as we proceed. We just locked down the date on Friday, so this is only Tuesday, so we're just beginning to put everything together. Looking for sponsors, of course, for people to come. Last year we had almost 250 people out. Last year, people from around the country, so we're hoping to have as many this year. And maybe even more. The facility will hold up to about 320, I think. And so we've got capacity to increase the numbers, and we hope that we will. So just wanted to let you know about that. And so these events that we're doing, we're hosting some of these smaller events, are sort of a prelude to the Stan Awards dinner. So the first one being hosted by good friends and supporters, George and Alana Yakas, is going to be held at the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church, 1489 Laskin Road, and that's in Virginia Beach at 5:30 p.m. on this coming Thursday. That's Thursday, March the 14th, okay? So just wanted you to be aware of that. All right, we got lots to cover today, but it's going to primarily surround a single subject. I don't know whether any of you recall this, but it's really started years ago. I started talking about something. I'm always particularly gratified to know I'm talking about things that nobody else is talking about. Then later on, everybody kind of catches up. And I don't think that's because I'm smarter than anybody else, frankly. I think it's really because I think about these issues spiritually. And by the way, that doesn't mean I'm the only one. It just means as I haven't seen anybody else publicly addressing the issue, on any major forum. So, but I think it's because I come at this from a spiritual perspective rather than from a strictly political or social perspective. And I think that gives you a different kind of insight into what is going on than when you just look at things politically and you just take things at face value. Well, one of the issues I have been raising with regard to illegal immigration, by the way, I think our guest coming up is going to be talking about illegal immigration. Our guest coming up on our National Awakening Coalition Conference call a week from today. We don't have a call today, but a week from today. I think our guest is someone who's going to be talking about illegal immigration, if I am not mistaken. I'll tell you more about that as the week goes on. But I have been talking about the fact that before you even get to having illegal immigrants vote, okay, before you get to that point, which is definitely where the Democrats want, this is where they expect this to go. If it doesn't happen in the next 5 years or 10 years, they figure 20 years, 30 years, somewhere down the line, they really believe that the illegal immigrant population is going to give them total hegemony over the country. That's what but that's the only reason why they're taking the great political risk that they're taking now. That's the only reason why they're ignoring the fact that Christopher Wray says ISIS is coming across the border. We know that Chinese nationals are coming across the border. Fentanyl's coming across the border. Child traffickers and cartel members are coming across the border. I mean, we've got disease coming across the border, frankly. Gang members coming across the border. It's increasing our crime. It's making Americans less safe on the streets of our cities, particularly. All this stuff is happening. But the Democrats are completely ignoring that and pretending that that's not the case. Why? Why would they run the risk of the high political price that they could pay in order to get these people in? Because they really believe that this leads them to what they ultimately want, which is total power over the country. That's why. It is not, they don't care about these illegal immigrants. They don't care about them. Those are just pawns in the power game. Excuse me, folks. Those are just pawns in the power game. They don't care about them. They're playing, this is a power game, and they are playing for power. Now, sadly, even that, very few politicians will say that. The Democrats will never say that. Every Republican, every conservative ought to be saying that every time they have a chance, because they need to be telling the American people they're playing you for a sucker. They want power. This is the way they're going to get it. And they don't care the impact it has on you, on your family, on our economy, on our delivery systems, on public safety. They don't care the effect that it has on our national security. They don't care about any of that. They care that this is a pathway to power and they must get it at all costs. Power is one of their idols. Baby killing is the other. But baby killing and power is part of what they live for. That's what they worship. They worship power. And of course, one of the ultimate acts of power is killing an unborn baby. I mean, you don't get more powerful than taking the life of a human being. I mean, that's raw power at its most basic. Killing another human being, taking a human life. And of course, when power is your God, it means that the God of the Bible, the true and the living God, the only true God, cannot be your God, and therefore everything that he wants, requires, commands is irrelevant, or is even, to put it worse, is even wrong. And we must go against him. So, he said he made male and female. That's not true. Who said that? That's a lie. It reminds me of what the devil said to Eve. Has God truly said in the beginning he made them male and female? No. You know what it is? It's that God doesn't want you to be free. God doesn't want you to be able to fully express yourself. God doesn't want you to be able to live in the right body. So you don't have to pay any attention to that. He knows that when you shed all that gender stuff, you can be a God like him. It's all about power, folks. It is all about power and control. Well, I've been saying for years now, I don't know when was the last time I said it, but I mean, I've been saying for years, and I never heard anybody else pick up on it. And again, I'm not saying nobody else did. I'm just saying I never heard anybody else do it. Because I'm sure there are other people who had the same thoughts I had, but maybe didn't have a platform to say anything about it, which is, even before you get to having them vote, if they swell the census, as they add bodies to the census, and the census for purposes of congressional representation counts bodies, not citizens. It counts bodies. As a matter of fact, Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee introduced a bill, didn't go anywhere, to not count illegal immigrants for purposes of congressional representation. I haven't studied the constitutional question at stake here, but and it may not even be a constitutional question. It may be really a question of precedent that we need to take a hard look at. Because I don't believe they should be counted. But folks, here again, this takes us right back to the 3/5 clause. Because here again, the 3/5 clause, which has been misunderstood and mischaracterized, the 3/5 clause defined black people as 3/5 of a person, which is just a bunch of hogwash. I mean, every time I hear people espouse that, and I've been criticized for telling you what I'm about to tell you now, which is that the 3/5 clause was not about black individuals. It was about how much of the population would be counted for purposes of congressional representation in southern states where there were large black populations. That's what it was about. And that when I told people that the 3/5 clause was anti-slavery, I mean, the leftists just went, what an idiot he is. He thinks that the 3/5 clause was anti-slavery. Yeah. I mean, these people are so dumb. I don't even know how they know how to come out of the rain. I really don't. Or to put up an umbrella over there. Because look, and all you have to do is pose this question. So then are you saying it would have been better if the black population, better for them, if they had been counted 1-to-1? In other words, for purposes of counting black people for congressional representation, it would have been better if they counted them 1-for-1? Well, of course not. I mean, these dummies won't even admit the obvious, which is if you counted them 1-for-1, you enhanced the power of the slave states. You gave them more congressional representation. And what the northern states were trying to do was limit their representation. But in order to hold the Union together, they went back to the same arrangement that they had under the Confederate arrangement. I'm not talking about the Confederacy, but pre-constitutionally, pre the Constitution, they had a confederacy of states, and the arrangement then was that they would count 3/5 of the black population for purposes of congressional representation. That was the compromise that they came to. So they went right back to that because they knew at least the South would accept that. But remember, Southerners wanted all of their black population counted because they knew that would increase their power, even though those black people they were counting had absolutely no constitutional rights, no voting rights, no nothing, at any rate. A little pet peeve of mine, because again, it's how history gets skewed in order to try to paint the picture. Now, by the way, I'm not saying that the whole system wasn't terrible. It was. All I'm saying is that's used to say, see, America defined black people as 3/5 of a person. And that's just a lie. It's simply a lie. That was not the issue. So here we are now with illegal immigration. So let's bring this into the modern era. Let's say they get into a battle over how you're going to count illegal immigrants in the next census, which is not coming up, of course, for another 6 years. And somebody says, well, no, you can't count illegal immigrants for purposes of congressional representation, because, I mean, they're not citizens. They don't have the right to vote. They should not be counted for purposes of congressional representation. Somebody says, oh, no. That's the precedent. That's what we've always done. We count persons. And somebody says, well, I'll tell you what. we will compromise and say 50% of the population of the illegal immigrants can be counted in the census for purposes of congressional representation. And somebody comes along and says, you know what? In America, they define illegal immigrants as 1/2 of a person. An illegal immigrant is only 1/2 human. That's basically what that would amount to. But let's come back to this issue. So I raised the issue that nobody else was raising, which was you don't even need them to vote at this point. The fact that they're swelling the population of blue states means that those blue states that are often hemorrhaging population because people are getting out of them because they're so terribly run, now you've got a new influx of people to give them the population boost they need to stop the hemorrhaging of population, A, and B, maybe even to add to their population so that they can have more congressional representation, not less, which increases their power. So Senator Hagerty tried to, of course it wasn't going anywhere because Joe Biden would have vetoed it anyway, said you can't count them because they're not citizens. I agree with him entirely. You can count them for purposes of knowing who's here, certainly. But for purposes of congressional representation, they should not be counted because they are not citizens. They are here illegally. They don't belong here. And to count them for purposes of congressional representation is to give the Democrat Party and the left exactly what they want, which is more political power for breaking our laws and undermining our national security. You're rewarding them for doing things that help destroy our country. Well, finally, but even now, you don't really hear this talked about. Senator Hagerty from Tennessee tried to introduce a bill just this year, but you don't hear this being talked about. Folks, that's really the ticking time bomb, and that's really why we're going to feel the effects of this if we don't deport all these people. We're going to feel the effects before they get a chance to vote, because we're going to feel the effects in the next census. And who knows, God forbid, if Joe Biden were to be reelected, I mean, what are we going to have then? 30 million more pouring in? Because, of course, you hear them all say they support Joe Biden. If Biden is reelected, you might as well just stand up at the southern border with a bullhorn and just plant speakers all over South America and say, Joe Biden's been reelected, come on in. Just everybody head for America. And the Border Patrol agents just might as well stand there and give away tickets and tell people, here you go. Here's your voucher. Go collect your phone, collect your hotel, collect your food, collect your $1,500 a month stipend. Go get everything you need. It's waiting for you. And the Democrats saying, don't forget who gave you all this stuff. Don't forget who got you across the border. And folks, the next thing you know, we've got a country that's like California and Massachusetts, a one-state nation. Like this idiot mayor up in Boston, who had some kind of celebration which he excluded white people, only for people of color. Which again, there's no such thing as a person without color. But that's the cute little thing that they use in order to basically say, white people bad, everybody else good. That's basically what they're saying. People of European ancestry bad, people of all other ancestry good. Once again, folks, what's that about? It's about power. It's about playing God. The Bible certainly doesn't teach that. I said I'm reading this book by Robin Lane Fox. You may not have heard of Robin Lane Fox. It's not that he's a renowned author or anything, but I read his book, Alexander the Great. My goodness, it had to be 20, 25 years ago, and I mean, it's just one of the greatest history books I've ever read. He just did a masterful job. And I was watching this documentary about Alexander the Great, and I got to thinking about the book. It's still in my library. So I pulled the book out and started looking at, because when I read a book, I I flag things and make notes, and I was going back and reading some of the notes I wrote in the book, and I got to thinking, well, I wonder what else Robin Lane Fox has written. So then I got to looking up what else he's written. He hasn't really written a lot, but he did write another book, and I thought, well, wow, if this book is as good as his Alexander the Great book, I mean, that's got to really be worth reading. And so I decided I was going to read this new book. Well, it's not new now, but this other book he wrote called The Classical World. And it's really primarily about ancient Greece, okay, from about 700 BC down to about the 1st century BC. And he starts, of course, during the time of well, who? You know what? If I start naming these people, it'll probably be esoteric, and I'm not always clear on who some of these characters were. But you know, he starts out talking about people like Pericles and some of the culture of ancient Greece going back to 700 BC, and then winds his way down. I'm reading now about King Philip, of course, Alexander the Great's father. Here's the point I want to get to. And folks, I just can't tell you the more, and I love history. I was thinking the other day, you know, maybe I should have been a history professor. I kept myself out of some trouble, you know. But I never cease to be amazed that what I say to you all the time is so obviously true, but it's such ignorance that produces this ideology, this racial ideology in our country, and racists on both sides. You know, the racists who came up with racial ideology to justify slavery, now the racists who are coming up with ideology to justify everyone being forever in their debt because they're descendants of slaves and they need reparations and blah, 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 blah. Pay us for 250 years and buy me a house, all this nonsense. Folks, that entire period, everywhere, there were slaves. Everywhere. And of course, that's what, 2,000 years before the Atlantic slave trade. There was slavery everywhere. In ancient Greece, there were Greek slaves. In other words, if you were a wealthy Greek, you were a Greek noble, and you had the money, you had slaves. And those slaves were Greeks. They weren't Africans. They were Greeks. And they were slaves for hard labor. There were women who were sexual slaves. And as you all probably know about Greek culture, the homosexuality, you know, older men utilizing young boys was just, in spite of all of the advances and all of the sophisticated thinking that, you know, producing Plato and Socrates and Aristotle and all of that, they were still just as degenerate as they could be. Pythagoras, but they were degenerate. And they thought a patrician, a noble, a wealthy person, having a young boy as his sexual object was perfectly normal. And, you know, so they would buy young boys as slaves, and that's what they were. I mean, my point in saying all this is simply to say we live in an era in which the racial aspect of the most famous slavery in recent history, which is the African slave trade, has now turned this into something unique, something different. Oh, yeah, this is terrible. And would have us think that slavery is all about race. Slavery has never been about race. Race is just kind of a footnote that people use. Just like in ancient societies where most of the slavery, because people were not traveling, I mean, even though Athens and Sparta, Athens particularly, had ships. They didn't travel very far, and they mainly stayed along the coasts of their own area, and primarily not only for trade, but also for conquest, to try to conquer areas that were near to them and take over those areas. So they were advanced in some ways, but there was not even a moral question about slavery, folks. There wasn't. You don't read anything. I have not come across anything so far in all my readings. This is another book. This is actually the first book, other than that, Alexander the Great and the Peloponnesian Wars. First book I've read about classical history. But I have not found anything in which anybody raised a moral question about slavery being somehow inherently morally wrong. It's just what you did. And by the way, this is something I've learned too. This goes all the way up to England in the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries. The people of England lived in fear of slavery, primarily by being conquered by some other empire or nation, and they knew that if you were conquered by some other nation, that you only had two possibilities for you under that nation's leadership, under that nation's tyranny: death or slavery. That was it. Either you were killed or you were placed in slavery. You became a slave. And it wasn't based on skin color, it was based on conquest. If you were part of a conquered people, then you were turned into a slave, if you weren't killed. And in some cases, they committed mass murder, particularly the men, to get rid of them all. So the point I'm making, folks, is that the problem is not skin color. The problem is sin. Now, I got off on all of that talking about illegal immigration because we face a similar problem with what we faced as a nation during slavery times, which is how do you account for a group of people who really have no citizenship rights? How do you account for them in the census, and how do you include them for purposes of congressional representation? And to what extent? Or do you include them? We got the same problem here, except I guarantee you the Democrats will be saying the same thing that the slave masters said in the antebellum South, which is count every single one of them. Now, history comes down and looks at that, and we go, yeah, of course that's the right thing to do. But it was the slave masters who wanted to do that. Because by counting every single one of them, you knew you were going to enhance your power. Well, here we are, same situation with illegal immigration. Okay, let me move on from that aspect of it. So, folks, just so you're aware, we haven't gotten to the issue of their voting yet. But part of what has spurred me to talk about this is something I brought up before, which is this woman in San Francisco who has been appointed to the election board of San Francisco, who is not a citizen of the United States of America. She is a Chinese national. And San Francisco has appointed her to their election board. I've got a word for what they've done. Traitors. Traitors. They are traitors to the United States of America. And you know, folks, I'm convinced of this. China has probably decided we may never have to fight America if we just buy America first. We just buy up their people, because enough of them are greedy for money. Enough of them will do anything for money that we just buy them and get it over with. And then before you know it, they're doing our bidding without us having to fire a shot. Because, folks, that's where this is going. I mean, can you imagine? And why the election board? Why the election board? You can't tell me that this woman, I want to look up her name, but this woman is not reporting to the Chinese Communist Party. You can't tell me that. And by the way, you can't tell me that there aren't, Kelly Wong is her name, Kelly Wong. You can't tell me that there aren't San Franciscans who don't know that. That you can't tell me that there is no one on the board of elections who doesn't know that someone on that board, let me try to get this straight so it's clear, someone on that board knows that this woman is reporting to the Chinese Communist Party. And they're probably in on it. I mean, come on, folks. We can't be naive about this stuff. And just you know, oh, it's pie in the sky. It's all peaches and cream. It's all idealism. That's not the way China works. You think these people are coming here by accident? You think they're coming here without China's knowledge? I mean, remember, the anchor baby industry had China as its primary sponsor. It was China that was primarily getting women into America, having babies here, so that those babies become American citizens. Then they pick those babies up, take them back to China so that they can matriculate them, indoctrinate them, train them to be spies for the Chinese or do whatever they need them to do, and then send them back to America to do what they need to have them do. Basically, you undermine us from within. Well, illegal immigration, and to tell you the truth, folks, I have to admit, I'm somewhat surprised by this. Illegal immigration, I just realized I hadn't even adjusted my watch for daylight savings time. What time is it? 9:02. Illegal immigration has become the top issue in America. It is the #1 issue. In fact, see if I can find this number. I think 55% of the American people, 55% of the American people say illegal immigration places a critical threat to our national security. Another 31% say it's an important threat. So that means 86% of the American people believe that illegal immigration is either a critical or important threat to our national security. Only 14% say it's not a problem. Only 14%. We have a consensus around that issue. It's overwhelming, which kind of surprises me, frankly, because I think that the left has done such a good job at hiding the illegal immigration problem. I mean, the MSNBC, Marxist, Socialist, No Brains channel, CNN, the Communist News Network, they have refused to report on it by and large. They're kind of being forced to report on it now because the numbers are so overwhelming that they just can't ignore it. They've tried to, but they're still trying to suppress it. So when this guy killed Laken Riley, they didn't even want to report on it. And you saw that in his State of the Union message, Joe Biden mentioned Laken Riley's murderer, alleged murderer, as an illegal immigrant and then came back and apologized for it on another Marxist Socialist No Brains channel interview. Do you regret using illegal immigrant? I mean, you know, the statutory language is illegal alien. That's the legal language. You are here illegally. And the legal language in the statute is illegal alien. But we're not supposed to even call them illegal immigrants. In fact, they've got a new term now, newcomer. They want to use newcomer, not undocumented now. It's getting worse and worse. Now they want to use newcomer. You know, this effort to change the vocabulary, folks, is the sign of liars. Because what they do is they change the vocabulary in order to camouflage the lie. The lie is that these people have a right to be here, that they are legitimate immigrants. And the way you camouflage that lie is by calling them undocumented immigrants. They're just immigrants. Oh, they just happen to be undocumented. But now they're going to be newcomers. Oh, they're just here recently. So Joe Biden apologized, said he regretted using that term, and then his staff came out and said later, no, he didn't apologize. He didn't apologize. I mean, these people are just, they are consummate liars. And you know what? God hates lying. You know that. God hates lying. The Bible says so. Read it, Proverbs chapter 6. These 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. A lying tongue is one of those things. And I'll tell you, folks, Joe Biden and the whole Democrat apparatus, they built their party now on lies. Now, what that means, though, is they simply can't sustain it. It's not possible to sustain a house built on lies. It must collapse in on your head. It will. There's no question about it. It's just a question of when and how it happens, but it's coming. You can't, you simply, lies cannot be sustained and maintained over an extended period of time. Sooner or later, they collapse. That's why the Soviet Union collapsed. That's why Hitler ultimately committed suicide and lost World War II. That's why Communist China had to leave the communist system and create a pseudo-capitalism in order to feed their people and clothe their people, because communism is a lie. It is built on a lie. It is based on a lie. It is a lie. But you camouflage the lie by changing vocabulary, changing the meaning of words. Oh no, it wasn't an apology. It was he didn't apologize. He just changed. He just said it differently. But you know, in one sense, we can be glad about this, because the more they lie, the bigger the lies that they tell. I think the more the American people awaken to the fact that the biggest threat to our country today is the Democrat Party. They keep saying it's Donald Trump. Donald Trump, did you hear the rant by Robert De Niro on some late night talk show? You won't, when he gets elected, he's coming after me, and you won't be able to vote again. I mean, the man was already president for 4 years, and he did none of that. And in spite of all the insurrection talk, there's been no charge or conviction for insurrection. You know why? Because you can't convict a person of insurrection when they tell a group of people, let's peacefully and patriotically protest what is going on right now. That's not insurrection. That's the exercise of one's constitutional liberties. Okay. Speaking of that, another congressman, what's this guy's name? Congressman August Pfluger of Texas is introducing a bill to prohibit the appointment of non-citizens to election boards. That's probably not going anywhere either, because that's what the Democrats want. They want these people infiltrating everything. This stuff is anti-American, it's anti-God, it's anti-Christian, it's anti-law, anti-law and order. I mean, this stuff is just lawlessness run amok, because again, it advances their power agenda, and they don't care about anything else or anybody. All they care about is, what is the pathway to power? Now, Christopher Wray, who is nobody's doctrinaire conservative, he's nobody's right-wing extremist, right? Which is how they try to label us. He says that we've got ISIS coming across our southern border. ISIS. What do you think that's going? What do you think they're coming across our border for? They're coming across our border to destroy us. And again, Joe Biden is facilitating their coming across, because they just don't care what it costs to get where they want to go. They don't care what it costs you, what it costs me. They don't care. TikTok, I think I've told you all, and I've only got a few minutes left, but I think I've told you all, I thought about going on TikTok, because I thought, man, there's a big audience on TikTok, and I really need to reach that audience. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, and my conscience would not allow me to do it. And by the way, I don't think that being on TikTok makes you a traitor to the country per se. And if people gotten started there, they're making money. I can understand, that they may not be that aware of what it really represents. But some of these people who are going on, actually working for, I think it's called ByteDance, the owner, the owner of TikTok, which is a Chinese-owned company, and actually trying to sell TikTok to the American people as something good for the American people. These people are traitors. They are traitors, because they're really working for our enemy. A new report's just come out in which it's been acknowledged that China is indeed mining the data from TikTok. But not only that, not only is all this data flowing to China about the American people, our thinking, our behavior, anything they can get. And who knows who they can get it on, because you can have the children of prominent people on TikTok. They can learn things about their behavior. I mean, there's just no telling where this all goes, folks, with the rise of AI now. I've said it is now humanly possible to do what the book of Revelation says, which is to literally mark every single human being, to know all their movements, to know where they are, where they're going, all of that. It is possible to do that now. And then I thought, well, you know what? Actually, it's already happening with these phones, because these phones track your every movement. They can also listen to what your conversations are. I mean, we've all had the experience, right, of talking to someone about some issue, and then all of a sudden you look at your Google feed and that issue pops up. Most of us have had that experience on more than one occasion. Now, one time coincidence may be, but when it happens time after time after time after time, something's going on. And I mean, and you look, have you ever been talking and all of a sudden your phone starts repeating you? Siri comes up, you're talking, and suddenly the dictation is going into one of your apps. It's going into your into your message app, and you didn't do anything it just starts. So we know this stuff is dangerous. I mean, it's very convenient and it can be very efficient, but it's also very dangerous. So it's already happening. Now you give the Chinese Communist Party access to American children, and guess what they found they're feeding them? Self-harm, suicidal ideation, drugs, alcohol, pornography. In other words, this is called demoralizing a country from within. Because you realize China's at war with us. We're not at war with them, but they're at war with us. And since we have freedom here and they don't, we can't take advantage and go talk to the Chinese people, but they can take advantage and talk to the American people all they want. And you got these what I call these idiots who lack common sense when it comes to some issues like Rand Paul and some of these others who say, we believe in the First Amendment. You can't touch TikTok. Yeah, but folks, look at it this way. Suppose we literally went to war with China. Would anybody be saying, oh, but you can't touch TikTok because we're a constitutional republic and we have freedom of speech? Any president worth of salt would shut it down the moment the first missile arrived in an American city from China. Right? Of course. Because you're not going to give the enemy an opportunity to, in effect, listen in on the American people and communicate with the American people. You're just not going to do that. Well, we're already at war with them. They're already at war with us. It's just that it's not a kinetic war yet. And I hope it never does become one, by the way. But make no mistake, they are at war with us. Oh, my goodness. You know what, folks? I'm out of time. Wow. I got to go. Look, God bless each and every one of you. Stan is going to continue to work on these issues. We are looking to expand our portfolio, frankly, rather than shrink it. We need your help. StanAmerica.us is where you go to sign up and to contribute. And by the way, remember that if you contribute $25 or more a month, I will send you a signed copy of my book, Sweet Land of Liberty, Reflections of a Patriot Descended from Slaves. It is in fact, my understanding is it's a top-selling book. It's not a bestseller, but it's a top-selling book. They are moving. I was at First Baptist Church down in Indian Trail, North Carolina, and the pastor's wife said she had read the book, and she said it's the first book she's ever read. Where she started, I think one night she said she read it, I think 2 or 3 nights. Once she started it, she couldn't put it down. And I was really gratified to hear that because, of course, you want a book not only to contain important information, you want it to be well written. You want it to be something that people enjoy reading because it reads well, it flows well. And apparently it did that for her. By the way, if you've read my book, go to Amazon, please, and write a review of my book. I would really appreciate that. There are only a few on there right now. So I would really appreciate any of you who have read my book to go on Amazon. It's very easy to do and write a review of the book. The more reviews, the more books we sell. And remember, if you just want to get a copy of the book, you can get it at a 15% discount at faithfultext.com. Faithfultext.com. That's my publisher's website. My publisher is Fidelis. All right. God bless each and every one of you. Be a happy warrior. Stay in this fight because we have already won it by the power of Jesus Christ. It's not a matter of if or whether. It's only a matter of when it manifests. So you stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit because we are on God's side.